Day. And welcome, Maison. I truly appreciate you joining us. For those of you who do not remember, and I can see that some of the folks that are here today were here many years ago when Maison came to Diversity in Madison when we were meeting at the Lucier Center and brought a presentation about the Hmong traditions and educated all of us. But that was many years ago. And here we are today with so much more going on in terms of diversity. And so we're delighted to have you here, Maison, to talk about the Hmong community here in Madison, of
Sure.
which you've been a vital part. And you've also been very active for other smaller ethnic groups. So talk to us about your experience as a Hmong person in Madison to begin with, please.
Great. I have a PowerPoint, so if you want to give me a share access, I can share and talk. Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's always great to be able to have a conversation on Hmong experiences in Wisconsin. As you know, I arrived in this country as a teenager. I think I have the best of both worlds. Being able to understand my community and then also being able to be a bridge to the mainstream community. And so it's always an honor, and this is the best part of what I do in my state job, which I just retired last year for the past, 29 years serving refugees in Wisconsin and the Hmong community. And now I am with the Hmong Institute full time, still doing the same thing, but just without the bureaucratic headaches. So, it's great. Let's see. Am I able to share now?
Barbara, can we do that? Barbara, I can't hear you.
You're muted, Barbara. Okay.
You see it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Can everybody see that? Yes. Okay.
Let me go to the top. And you would think that I have all the experience I have in technology, but sometimes they still. Okay, cool. Yeah, so again, yeah, I'm honored to be here. As I said, I come to this country as a former refugee. I spent most of my life in the refugee camp growing up there. So like the first picture here is me leaving Laos. And then the next picture is me growing up in the camp and coming to the US. And then as a Hmong girl who, chose education over marriage, I kind of become the black sheep in my own community to pave the way for everyone. And so here I am at the United Nations conference while my cousins are all married and, having families. I'm out there doing things solo. And then I eventually got married, and my mom was super excited. She didn't know what to do. And, give her two, three grandkids in my late 30s, early 40s, which is very abnormal because, again, people, my cousin, my age, they already have kids, in school, and I just got married and so forth. So anyway, we all, chose a path in life that we want, and that's what I wanted. So as I said, I just retired from state service after many years, and now I am with the Hmong Institute, which is an agency that I co-founded, and now I am the COO, helping the institute. So basically, I'll just go really fast, and you guys feel free to ask me questions because I can talk all day. And I'll just, go through the brief history, some of the, basic things about who we are as a people, and let's just have a conversation. So historically, we, as Hmong people came out of Laos, the people who migrated, resettled to the United States, are product of the Vietnam War. But outside of Laos, way before the involvement with the United States, we were in China and migrated there. So just to clarify, right now, worldwide, we have a lot of Hmong. But when we talk of the Hmong in the United States, we're talking about the Hmong who supported the United States and were allies of the United States. Hmong in China, Hmong in Vietnam and Thailand, and some in Laos who joined the communist side are still in Laos and not ally of the United States. So for those of us who joined the United States from 1963 to 75, we were in what is known as the secret war. Everything is kept secreted because it's all a covert operation through the CIA until, journalists review many years later. And the Hmong were recruited to do 3 specific roles. American pilots don't know the territory, so when they got shot down, the 10 Hmong people would go to the jungle, find them, rescue them, protect them until, helicopters will come and bring them to the headquarters. The other is to spy for CIA. So my uncle, for example, was captured when he was, a spy working with the CIA. We never knew how he died and when and all of that. The third one is just protect the Ho Chi Minh Trail, because in the war, the trail comes through Laos. And so that's what we have to do. In refugee camp, there are many, many refugee camps. And I grew up in the Ban Vinai refugee camp. And, we live playing the swords, and that's our world. I have a story that I always tell about why the American people are so white. And I'll tell that story because that's part of my life. Growing up in the refugee camp, we always, have to find things to do and entertain ourselves. So there's this 6-foot-tall American gentleman who always walked in the camp with his Bible and dress up in the Hmong black pants. And, as a young child, our highlight is to do what we needed to do. My chore was just to go gather water and then water the garden. And then after that, I'm free to do things. So every day I always come home to my mom after I would, go find the white American, take a look at him. There's like always a crowd of kids, so it's not hard to find him. And then I would get a good look at him, and then I would run home, and then I said to my mom and dad, who is this American? Who is this person? Why is he so tall? Such a monsters, looking. His eyes are blue like the sky. His ears are perked up like mushroom. His nose are as big as my dad's, pipe. And so I would ask all these, mysterious questions in my mind. It's like, who is he? Why is he so big? Why is such a monsters looking? And the answer is always, he's an American from America, right? For years and years, I have painted in my head, okay, this is who the American people are. That's what they look like. Well, in February 1980, the fresh snow on the ground, I study, and as far as your eyes can see, nothing but pure white. So I turned to my brother and I said, oh, I understand why the American people are so white, because they live in a white country. And then from there on, I have to undo my own stereotype about who the American people are, because then I see people who don't look like that gentleman. In Wisconsin, this is what we pretty much are clustered in the counties with, a lot of Hmong. And we are a clan-based, so that's how we landed in Wisconsin in cluster like this, because there's a combination of churches who sponsor us, as well as Hmong leaders who live there. And in the 80s, I always say, if you were a social worker, you go crazy because you may have been assigned a few Hmong families, and then overnight your family disappeared. because they have gone to reunite with, their clan leader. And so it's still pretty much clustered like this, although some of those smaller county are having a few Hmong here and there, but this is in general what Hmong look like. So we are a clan base. Clan base means, we have about 18 clans, which is sharing the last name. And those last name can be, pretty unique to Hmong, and some are other Asians. So like the Chu, Ching, can be found in other, but like Ku or Moa or Vang and Vu and Tao, those are pretty unique to Hmong. One of the very unique thing is within the clan, you can't marry within each other. So way back in 1996, 1986, yeah, I was young and we went to California to attend the New Year, which is a courting event for the New Year, and found a very, handsome guy. We were playing ball tossing, and I didn't do the proper way, and that is you should, identify who you are and what clan you're from before you play ball tossing. And then halfway to it, I did the proper way. It turned out he's a boo. So my whole hormone just dropped and say, oh, I'm playing ball with my brother, and stopped. So that's basically the clan is for marriage identification. Family structure, it's pretty much kinship based. We have the extended family of the husband's side and the extended family of the wife's side. And everything then goes in circle based on the kinship relationship. We have roles and responsibility that is pretty much defined by birth order, gender, and age. Of course, all of what I'm sharing with you right now has gotten to be very diverse and not 100% true to every Hmong family. So just keep that in mind. But I'm giving you the very traditional version of what Hmong society looks like. When we came here, role reversal took another twist in our society where women oftentimes has taken on the role of men, and that causes a lot of complication as well. In the Hmong community, there are two dialects, the white Hmong and the green Hmong, and you can tell that by the clothing that we wear. And no major in the dialect. It's kind of like, in this country, how we look at water fountain. Some people call it the bubbler. Some people call soda and other people call pop, right? But then there's a small, about 5–10% that's very different, where the word chaw could be blanket in white Hmong and could be a bridge in green Hmong. But those are small percentages. Many years ago, when we were active in serving the community and serving the VIP who come to our New Year's, we have this chicken story that I always tell, because I am a white person of dialect, and the colleague who was serving with me was from the blue dialect, and we were having lunch, and he said, "Could you pass me a piece of chicken?" And in Hmong white dialect, it means delicious. And so I look at him and I looked at him and I go, "There's so many pieces of chicken. How do you know which piece is delicious?" And then I realized, oh, he's from the blue dialects, and that's what they meant, right? Traditional religion is animism. We worship our ancestors. We believe that everything has a soul. And when we die, we come back as human. So there's a lot in the tradition that governs funeral, for example. We're not allowed to have any kind of metal in our casket. And so there's a lot of those traditional issues that we go through all the time. healing practice that we still do that is pretty common here in Wisconsin is, new additions. We always do soul calling when we have a newborn, when we get married and we bring in a new wife to the family. We do a new addition celebration to welcome her and to introduce her to the spiritual. When we travel, there's belief that when you travel and you don't call your soul with you when you go home, like I am vacation now, when we go home, we always call and say, okay, we are vacationing, but it's time to go home, so let's go home, right? So you always call your soul to go home with you. And if you don't do that and you've gone home and you're sick and it's traced back to, your trip, then you do a soul calling and so forth. Celebration, when somebody graduates, you do a soul calling to wish them good health and prosperity. Same thing with the new year. So the soul calling is a, practice that we do pretty much in Wisconsin. The question oftentimes being asked to us is like, how do government and mainstream community accept among people? How do we fit in? Of course, it's always hard when we came in like a nobody. Those of you who have families who served in the Vietnam War, you probably could identify with them coming home and there's no welcoming for them and so forth. That's kind of how we are. We arrive in this country without any formal introductions. Our neighbor know and recognize that we're different. They can accept us or they don't accept us. It's our elders, our military individuals who's been the educator of the Hmong for the mainstream. When they wear the uniform, they go places, they're the one that's introducing the Hmong and why the Hmong came to the United States. And so it's a bittersweet because for those, like all of you today, taking the time to learn about why we come here, would understand our story and embrace us. But then those who don't take the time or who don't have any access to how do they learn about us and they don't know about us, then, it could be harsh because, like I have known many, many families throughout my course of working for the government where the neighbor put fence up the minute they know that the neighbor is not a, white Caucasian family, but a Hmong family. Or I always share in Appleton where I grew up, a lot of eggs are being thrown at us when they know that we are not, Caucasian and we're, we're looking and we go buy homes, next to them. They don't want us there, so they throw eggs at windows, at cars, and all the time. And so I remember Senator Nimoy's mom's very wise, and she always wanted to fight back, but her mom, and like my mom always say, be patient, be patient. Being patient is not going to kill you. And that's how we were taught. And so her mom said, if you're so upset about it, then study hard and go be the boss. And so that's what she did. She went to law school, worked in a law firm, ran for senator, and was the first Hmong senator, state senator in the country in Minnesota, who grew up in Appleton. So I can go on all day and talk about the bittersweet experience. There are some, positive experience. Those sponsors, especially, they make an effort to sponsor us, so then they shelter us and they protect us, making sure that other people don't, racially discriminated or give us hard time or whatever the situation is. And they are really, like I always say, like the eggshell, protect us, make sure we develop into a chicken before, they let us go. So there's, those who knew about us and embrace us, but then those who don't know us, we continue to experience this. And I was really not surprised, but thinking, wow, it hasn't changed much. As I was preparing for my retirement commons in October, my husband, they threw a retirement party for me. And I was looking through all my notes, and what I have done is culture training, culture training, culture training, and I'm still doing that today. So anyway, the question of, when we come here, how do we fit in? Language is always, the number one issue because we don't speak English. We come here, we have to learn how to speak English. And, it's difficult. Gender, again, culture preservation, and so forth. So I'll spend the rest of the time talking about some of these. How many of you have ever thought about the garage sign or the yard sign? And how does that mean to a newcomer? We live here and it makes sense. You're having garage sale, you're having yard sale. But, when we first came, my friend who's an anthropologist now, grew up in Colorado. And she's like, when I first got here in the United States, I couldn't understand why people want to sell their yard or when they want to sell their garage. And how would you deliver that to your home when you purchase their garage? How do you take it out and transport it? And how do you even do a yard, And then one day her Caucasian friend came and say, hey, dear, do you want to go garage shopping with me? And she said, oh, yeah, I do, because I really am curious how these things work, right? And so she went with her friend and she got there and she go, oh, why don't you just say you're selling the stuff in the garage or you're selling the stuff in the yard to avoid the confusion, right? So language barrier can be, frustrating, funny. Sometimes you laugh at yourself when you're like, oh, okay, I don't live here, so I don't understand that concept, right? Same thing with like my Caucasian friend who's learning Hmong. They don't know that Hmong is a tonal language, right? And so when a pitch drops or a pitch, goes higher, the meaning changes. And so like my best friend in high school, Pam, she always come in and running in the door and intended to have some papaya salad, which is sour, right? And the word sour and the word dog are just change of tone. She always come in and say, oh, I want to have some owl instead of owl, meaning I want to have some dog instead of papaya. So we always make fun of Pam. Oh, Pam's coming. She wants some dog. So language, yeah, it's very challenging for anyone who's, in a new country. And for our elder who come here, like my mom, they struggle. Some people just like my dad just decide not to learn because they're old and they think they can't learn. Whereas my mom, she's like, oh, I'm going to learn because I have to feed you guys and I have to help you guys. And so when we're gone to school, she would literally take the bus so she could have a conversation with somebody sitting, on the bus, or she would go to the thrift store so she could have a conversation and learn her English, right? By the time I went away to college, she's able to take a phone call and say, your name, your number, and then write that down. And when I come home, she'll be able to say, oh, so-and-so call you, and here's the number, right? So it's an ongoing challenge. Women's role, like I said, women's role has changed dramatically when we come here because of the role reversal. We have defined role where all the external affair belong to the men and all the internal belong to the women. So taking the kids to school should be the responsibility of the husband. But if the women oftentimes, like my mom, forward thinking and say, I'm not going to grieve what happened in the past. I'm going to just move forward and help my kids. Then they learn English faster. That means then they can pass the driver's test. So then they can drive, right? So in that role, they take on the husband's duty, and the husband can't drive. So then the husband have to, ask them. And so it's a double whammy indignity for the men when they can't do the work, but the women is doing it for them, right? And then the leadership role and so forth. I have this traffic stop that I love telling because it's about language, it's about role reversal. In Appleton, when the General Vang Pao used to come to Appleton a lot, all the Hmong men would go and meet up with General Vang Pao, who's the one that is the leader for the Hmong in the secret war. And this one woman was driving her husband on Highway 41. And the husband said, "We're late, go faster." We're late, going faster. So she sped up and she went faster and faster. And the state patrol, have the light on. She got afraid. So she didn't stop. She kept going. And then the state patrol went over to the other lane, rolled the window, and took out the bullhorn and say, "Pull your car over the shoulder." She didn't understand a lot of English. So she's like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do with my car over my shoulder? How do I do that?" So she got even more scared. And, the state patrol literally have to go in front of her and force her to stop, right? And so there's a lot of these things where, role reversal causes a lot of stress for women. It also causes a lot of, misunderstanding between them and their husband. And sometimes, that causes a lot of violence in the home too. And that's when I came in, when I started my job with the state is, I graduated from high school, college. There's domestic abuse that started to happen because we have now in 10 years, ask all the women to go to work so the family can be off public assistance independently. Whereas if the husband is the only one that's working, they don't make enough, so then they still depend on public assistance. So we have to work at doing customized training and put the women to work. And so when the women went to work, a lot of misunderstanding happened and a lot of violence started to happen. So that's when I came in and started to develop culturally relevant domestic abuse program for the refugees in Wisconsin. The other piece that we are not fitting in very well is culture preservation. Wedding, funeral, rituals, and language, because oftentimes this calls for a live animal. And in the good 80s, it caused a lot of, misunderstanding when they see someone butcher a chicken in the backyard or a pig in the backyard. And there's a lot of misunderstanding. Funeral homes, it's tough for the funeral director where they have to make a choice of living with a neighbor and have the neighbor support them or support the Hmong and be isolated, right? Because when you have a Hmong funeral, that's 24/7 for 3-4 days. That means the traffic, the parking in the block, it's huge. And so the neighbor would call the police on the funeral home and the funeral director would have to deal with it, right? And so they have to make tough choices about, oh, do we want to host a Hmong funeral or not, right? And so in Madison, for example, we have to go all the way to Oregon to have a Hmong funeral most of the time now, because there's only one on East Town that would rent to Hmong who does traditional funeral home. And with our population aging and dying, we often have to go all the way to Oregon. So do we fit in? Not really, unless we are like the Twin City where we buy our own funeral home, we operate it outside of town, and nobody can complain. Unfortunately, in Madison, we can't do that because our population is a lot smaller. We are very fortunate that, we are fitting in education quite a bit through our parents' hard work. A lot of time when you go to the farmer's market and you see a lot of those Hmong family, that's their third jobs, making money so they can support their kids in college. And so people like, the first picture I have here is Senator Mimoa, the individual that I spoke earlier, she and I grew up as a teenager arriving in Appleton. The second one here is our first Hmong elected judge in the nation, Judge Christy Yang in Milwaukee. And so education opportunities has really, been able to support many of us who are motivated I have kids who are in college now, and I always give them the guilt trip and say, I have to do my own advocacy, my own, education, navigation of everything to get my degree. And you guys, you have all of that. So what is there left not to do that would not motivate you to do, what you needed to do, right? And so for us, education is a key where even though our parents are not able to speak and read English, they know it's a key to a successful life in America. So they make sure we study hard, and failing is not an option for us, is a must, right? So over the course of the last couple of decades, we're fitting in where we have young people who have the opportunity to go to high school and college and become professional in the community, whether they're in, legal, politician, professor, whatever area. The other piece that we are not fitting in, though, is the academic development. Again, we're just barely making it. And so not having the fund to make sure that our kids are large, we have a larger family size. So we have many more kids in the family to feed. So we're still struggling for, food equity. Education opportunities are still limited to our population. And with my kids, they're like, well, you and dad went to college, so now we have no support for first time, college students. So it's even harder for them, right? The culture clash continue to happen because, again, for new people who don't know about us and they encounter us, it's still the same story. Why are you here? Why don't you go back home? And so that still happens a lot. Our elders, how are they doing? How are they fitting in? They don't fit in. They're living in an isolation within their own community because of the language and the culture differences. And so, like in Bayview, you go, you see a lot of Hmong there who are pretty much in their own world there. You go to, Kennedy Heights, you go to Northport, you go to, low income area, you still see Hmong who are still there struggling to make, ends meet. And the elders are pretty much in isolation because the adults are, working, but not making enough to move to the suburbs with a nicer home or things like that. So we still have elders who are struggling. Now it's even harder because of the mental health issue. When we first got here in the United States as refugees, again, there was no welcoming for us. So there was never the option of, oh, you came from a war-torn country. How is your mental health? There's never that question being addressed. So now the mental health is huge because all the PTSD are hitting them, all the trauma. And so we're very sad that we have elders who commit suicide because they are struggling by themselves. And then for some, the kids are working and the kids don't have the time to take care of them. They're being abandoned. And so they feel like, why live? There's no reason to live, right? So then they will hang themselves and die because of, their mental health not being addressed. I can go on and talk about this all day as well, because we have, at Hmong Institute, the Hmong Kashia Elder Program where they come in, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more. Culture preservation is also something that we're trying to do because, working for the government for, many, many years, the one thing that I see in this country as a disease for everyone is mental health. And for our community, if we don't prevent it, it's going to be, a disease for us as well, and that is when you're hollow inside because you don't feel like you belong to a family, to a community, and you have no support, that's where you fall into that pit hole of depression, and depression would get you. And I see that in mainstream society where very wealthy people still get very depressed because they work really hard and all of a sudden, like a pyramid, they're all there by themselves. They have no family support on the system, right? So then what do? You have, and so we will be heading that direction as well as a community because that's the path in this country because it's all capitalism and you have to work hard to make sure that you have family support system. Otherwise, you end up, by yourself. So anyway, I can talk all day, but cultural practices that we are doing, again, I talk about the soul calling. The other one that we are still doing is shamanism. It's a healing practice that we do to diagnose and to, provide intervention for someone who is sick. A lot of them has to do with spiritual. And then we do medicines, whether it's dried herbs or fresh herbs or cubbings or massage or all of those, we do that daily as well. Because we believe that, human has a soul, living things has a soul. The soul calling, again, is something that we do every day when there is a spiritual needs. So, those are some of the things that we're facing. The Hmong Institute comes in place to advance the Hmong community and the mainstream community. And these are some of the key activities that we are doing the Hmong Institute. And that is our monkship program, our home away from home, a daytime program for our seniors. And now we're not only serving Hmong seniors, but we're serving Laotian, Cambodian, and Nepalis. Our small Nepali community in Madison has no place to go because they're not big enough to have a community center of their own and address the issue, right? So when one person discover us, the other person come along, and then the other person come along, and then the whole family come, and then a whole clan come. So right now we have 2 Nepali staff serving the Nepali community. We have a Laotian staff serving the Laotian community. We have a Cambodian staff serving the Cambodian community, and then we have 3 Hmong staff serving the Hmong communities. And, at Monkashia, it's a lovely, lively place because the elder walked in with a smile. And we always say, when we took them to play bingo at the senior center, everybody's playing bingo there for a nickel and for a dime. And our elder are playing for a roll of toilet paper because that's their basic needs. They need toilet paper at home. So we make an effort to support them in any way we can. And so, they come play bingo and then they each, get a chance to get their toilet paper. We take them on field trips and they love that because every month we take them to a new place. Last year, we went to the water utility so they understand where the water comes from. We took them to the jail so they understand, how the jail system works. And so our field trip is designed to be educational, exposing them to their new home so they understand how systems work where they lived. And they just loved it and they can't wait. And they always say, can we do more than once a month? And we're like, yes, but we don't have money. That means you guys will have to roll more egg rolls if you want to do more trips because we do our egg roll fundraiser 3 times a year. And that's how we have money to pay for transportation and pay for their expenses. The other thing that we do at the center that they really enjoyed is like sewing class for the women. Chuti and Annette, 2 wonderful volunteers, come in and teach them how to cut fabrics and sew a hat, sew a dress, sew a shirt, and that really is, a healing opportunity for them to sew away their stress and be able to, feel good because they have a tangible things to hold on to. Or our Nepalis are great attendance with our ESL class. They want to learn the English, so they come and learn English. We have a little tablet computer day where we give them tablets so then they can learn how to do, technology and help their memory because we put it in math or spelling or word puzzle into the tablets, and there's different levels, and it's great to see these elders being competitive. Oh, what level are you in? Oh, I am this level. What level are you in? And so there's a lot of things happening at the center, from bingo to health exercise to sewing to learning English and all of that. So we also do mental health support for them as well. Those who are ready to address their PTSD, we have among therapists that we refer them to. Dr. Coleman, who's a psychiatrist, comes in every week to check up on them with their medication. And so Montclair is their second home that they look forward to come every day. We provide them a hot meal every day so they can eat, healthy food. And they don't have to go home hungry. If they don't have dinner waiting for them, they at least have a nice, tummy to go home to. We do youth programming, language and culture immersion in summer for 5 weeks, Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. Very intensive because, again, we want to address the language, the culture, so that way they understand who they are and they don't have to, answer the question, do I want to be Hmong or do I want to be American, when they arrive in high school, right? On top of all the homo thing that's kicking and the peer pressure, they don't have to deal with identity issue. They would already know, okay, I came from, this family who came from here, and this is who I am, right? We have incorporated Hmong at the state capitol so we can educate our kids about civic education. And so every May, about a couple hundred of high school students come from across Wisconsin and learn about the state capitol. They get to meet, the governor or legislature, Supreme Court, and shake their hand and understand, what state government is all about. We have after school clubs now for a couple of schools in Sun Prairie and West High School, high school in Madison, where they can have a Hmong club after school to support their homework as well as social support for them. And then we also do an annual scholarship for college students. The other piece that we do a lot behind the scene that people don't see is culture training for providers. A lot of providers who are making great effort, good intention, but sometimes don't have the knowledge, right? And so we provide culture training for them. We provide individual case consultation for them. We do Hmong presentation like what I'm doing right now, so they understand a little bit about who we are. And we also do research, and every day we do advocacy for the people that we served. Things that we have done that is worth noting are, our daily program, Monkashia, as I explained earlier. We have 125 elders that we serve on a daily basis that come to the center. You guys, you're welcome to come. We are part of the Wisconsin Senior Program. So you're a senior, you come and eat for free. Youth programming, yeah. And I think one of the things that we have done that we didn't have to do because it's not part of the Institute's program operational is the food equity issue. With the pandemic, we discovered that our community were not receiving culture relevant food at the pantry. You give them potato, you give them beets, and they all ended up in the dumpster instead of, and so for me, I'm always about, well, make sure that you don't throw things out. And that means make sure the providers know not to give you those because they give it to you and you're polite and you just accept it, but then you toss it out. That means somebody else could enjoy it, right? So let's not give you what you don't use, and let's give you what you use. And that is, instead of potato, let's give you rice, right? And so we have advocated and we gotten a grant, an ARPA grant to do food equity. And we have given over 5,000 bags of 50 pound, as you can see in this picture, not a 2-pound bag of rice, but 50 pounds. And unfortunately, our grant is ending today. Yeah, the end of December. And so a lot of people are asking, well, what are we going to do when we have no rice coming from you guys? So our food equity, grant during the COVID pandemic has really supported us. We have done, almost $1 million in food box just in the last 2 years. And then our advocacy, at Second Harvest was finally happening when I went into the shopping cart and I saw the Macon Meat store in Menominee near Wausau included in there, and they're having Hmong sausage in there. And I was like, yes, yes. But then bittersweet, everybody's ordering it. And so we don't have the staff to keep looking on the shopping cart every day. So the chance of us getting it is really slim. And that's, I felt a little bit, bitter with that. Like, we advocate for this, shouldn't that be a priority to the population that we serve and so forth? But I understand, it's for everyone. So everyone has the opportunity to grab it. One thing in the pandemic that we all went through, and I'm sure, in the general community, everybody probably experienced some of these as well. But for our elders, our children and parents, there's a lot of anxiety, loss of family members. Our elders don't understand the, 6 feet rule of distance, social distance. They're always saying, this sickness that you guys are saying, we can't see it, we can't touch it, right? Kind of saying like we can't see our own enemy. And they're so afraid to die alone because many people went to the hospital and died and then come back. So during the pandemic, many people are afraid to go to the hospital. So they don't go to the hospital because they don't want to die alone in the hospital. Many elders are saying, I don't understand this social distance thing where my daughter would bring me food, but they would drop it in front of my doorstep and they would leave like I'm dead already. So there's a lot of insult, a lot of feeling of, disconnectedness for the elders. And, in our community, we give the elder a lot of respect, right? We put them up in the pedestal, we worship them, and we respect them. So in this pandemic, with all these social distance, the elders are confused and they didn't understand why they're being treated like they're dead already and just drop all the food at their doorstep and then leave, right? So we do a lot of education for the anti-Asian sentiment as well, because many people seen too much on TV where elders are, Asian elders are being knocked down and all of that. And so our elders are afraid, they didn't go outside. Luckily, we have a big gym. So when they come to us and they walk around the gym to get their physical, exercise. And again, lack of culture relevant and nutritional food for them is a huge thing. And so they're always happy coming, and they're like, oh, we come here, we have a good meal, a meal that it's cooking to our liking, and we see our friends and we do things together, and that's our home. And so they come in with a smile every day, and that's the best feeling for us. So the question of, how can you help, right? I think there's many things that people can help. We are very fortunate to have a few anonymous donors who donates to us every year, that help us, run some of our program. Our weekly sisterhood is a group of about 15 homebound women where I take them around and feeling their, trauma together. I take them places that they haven't been to. And we pay for the lodging. So we, all the money that we don't have from grants, we do it through our AGRO fundraiser, as well as, individual donations who saw the need. And so this year we took them to Wisconsin Dell. We rented a Airbnb for the weekend for them, and taught them the first time they ever went to an arcade and learned how to play a game. And so, it's all these little things that we take for granted. They do it and they're like, oh my God, this is so fun. Oh my God, this is, and it's really good for me, because then I see the competitiveness side of them, like who is more youthful than who, and learn to help them. Yeah. So these are, all the support that we need, ranging from, transportation for our sister, youth programming. We pay speakers, we pay for field trip. Our senior program, like I said, we take them out monthly. We buy toilet paper for them, and for bingos. Adult diapers is also another thing. Medication over the counter, because they don't have money to pay. So, maybe $30, maybe $12, but they don't have it. So then we need to pay for them. We do a lot of culture training. And again, food. We're not sure how we're going to continue the food issue now that our grant is, done. And our staff are unsung hero at the center, because they're the one that takes the elder under their wing, call the doctors, schedule the appointment for them, take them to the doctor, and interpret for them and advocate for them. And so the elders are very appreciative, because they always say, without you, I wouldn't be able to go to the doctor, and I wouldn't know what to do, especially very sensitive things like, civic cancer topic, or, breast cancer, a lot of that. A lot of things that people have done is volunteer their time, and they come and help us. We have 2 elders, teaches, English weekly for our Nepali. We have the sewing, we have the exercise class. Yeah, so there's a lot of need, and we're very fortunate that, in Dane County, we've been getting a lot of support from the community to support our work through their volunteers and time as well. Our big annual fundraiser is our Heritage Fundraiser at Monona Terrace. And you want to come, put it in your calendar, May 31st for 2025. This year is going to be bigger, because it's 50 years of Hmong diaspora, 50 years since we left Laos. And so we will be reflecting and healing together and celebrating together. The other one is, people always, on our behalf, be our ambassador and assist us in, telling people what we do at Monkashire for the elders, for the youth, and the community. And they're always, helping us advocate for more resources. Last month, yeah, one of the agency, the internal staff, they have donation among the staff, and they surprise us and they say, we're giving you $5,000 from, just us. And we're like, wow, because that $5,000 help us with a field trip, help us with the things that we need for the elders. And so we're always appreciative for that. All right, so that's all. I'm doing really good at speaking really fast and giving you, time for questions.
Mei Zong, I cannot thank you enough. As I listened to you, it was one shock after another. I don't think we think about the concerns of people that are not white, middle class, just normal, what we consider normal. It was shock after shock,
Mhm,
and I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way.
mhm,
Thank you so much for making us aware
mhm,
of, number one, the needs that exist in our community, but
mhm,
also the joyfulness that is part of your culture and how you all take care of one another. It's impressive to say the least. Um, Other people, please ask questions. I see Judy. Can you Judy Lovelace, can you
Mute.
yeah.
Hi, May. This was outstanding. Thank you. My daughter is a teacher, special ed teacher, and she has students who are hearing impaired in Wisconsin. She has had several students who are Hmong. The problem with the IEPs and the meeting with the parents is always an issue. Is there support for interpreters to do that?
Nope.
No, that's sad. That is really hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
When my kids are small, we were known as the anti ESL program in
Oh.
medicine, because I think the resources are allocated for people who need it, right? But for our kids who are born here, I didn't feel like our kids should be placed in ESL, right? And so
Right.
we spoke up to the board and we were labeled as the anti ESL program. So no, to your question, no. Our IEP doesn't get explained to the parents. The parents don't know such support existed. There may be a few who's very active and know the system and work for the system like me that may know about it, but for the majority of them, no. It's very unfortunate that our kids are raised to be obedient and respectful. So in the school system, as every year I always say to the superintendent, we're at a double-edged sword because our kids are quiet, they don't get the attention because they're raised to be respectful, and so unfortunately it's
That's the way
not.
the system works, right? Sorry.
Mhm. Yep, yep. All right, Anne has a question about Hmong women seem to be adjusting better or succeeding more than the men. Is that true? Yes, in general, it is true because of the two factors. So for people like my mom, they come here and they lost a lot during the war, right? But their mom and they have to take care of the kids. So they shift that mentality of mourning to the case managing, mentality. I got to case manage the school, the food, the everything. And so they tend to put away their mourning, whereas the husband, like my dad, he lost all his brother during the war. So he's still, up here trying to address his own mental health and is not moving on because he's stuck in that. So for that generation, yes. And then now for the younger women, some of them tend to be more successful than the men because in Hmong society, we're very defined by gender roles, right? And so the educational opportunities are limited to Hmong women back home and here in the United States, as well as family who are very traditional may promote education more for the boy than the girl. So then the girl in return are working, a lot harder to make sure that they have the opportunity. And as a result, they do better because, what do we say? The more practice, the better you are, right? And so a lot of the young women are better because they're working harder and they're practicing more of that disciplinary self-discipline for them. Medical issue. What are your concerns on medical issue, Jennifer?
Okay, I'll just say right off the bat, this may be incorrect or outdated information that I based impressions on, but many years ago, I read the book, The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down.
Mhm.
I assume you're very familiar with that book.
Yep.
I would hope that when a Hmong person goes to a hospital like the UW or, someplace in a larger community, at least like Milwaukee or Madison, that they have someone advocating for Hmong patients to bridge the cultural gap.
You would hope, but there are still common concerns where there is no advocacy and lack of understanding about the Hmong patients. So, I mean, they're better with the interpreter where they can call on the phone and get someone in there to interpret. I think that's becoming much better, not in person, but on the phone. And we always laugh about, oh, when you have to do a mammogram and they say, put your, do this or your breast, here, how do you do that on the phone, right? You can't see them, right? So there's still all these challenges, but no, unfortunately, we were talking about this yesterday. My sister was telling about stories of medical issue because she has one of her legs amputated a few years ago. And so unfortunately, no, the need for more advocacy is there. As simple as ordering food, when you're at the hospital. They didn't know that you can order food. And so then they wait for the family to bring them food only, right? As simple as that. Or as simple as understanding that our elders, culture differences, they like hot water after a procedure or when they're at the hospital. Nobody gives them, they bring in ice water instead, So there's a lot of these culture differences, a lot of the things that is very much a basic needs is not being understood. So yeah, very sad that
I will throw out a possibility. My husband is a retired physician, and he's worked in some big hospitals in big cities. And before there was a translation opportunity available, one of the things that he encouraged people to do, a doctor could call a local restaurant, and someone at the restaurant might be able to act as an interpreter. So just a thought.
Yeah.
Old fashioned, but sometimes it works.
Yeah. But then you have to think about that restaurant owner has to do that for everyone, right?
Right. But maybe a waitress or waiter, somebody else in the restaurant, could step up to the plate briefly.
Right. And then the liability issue is also another thing, a lot of the children get used as interpreters, and we have severe liability issues where, like in California, one father got his penis cut off because his daughter was asked to translate and she didn't know how to interpret, a piece of skin to be cut so you can have a test on it, right? What do you call
graft? Skin graft?
Yeah, just a skin. When you need a piece of skin to be tested, what there's
a biopsy.
A biopsy. Yeah. she didn't know how to, translate biopsy. So she translated that, and then even the procedure was going through, and they're asking her, "Are you sure this is what he wants?" And she still say yes, right? And then when he went home, and his wife was helping him clean up, and she said, "What happened?" You know? And
Wow.
so severe things happen. And it's still, I always laugh sometimes to my humor at DHS, and I say, the government here are very lucky that we are a very um, respectful community that respects authority, and we don't challenge authority as much as other community. But rest assured that our kids won't be like us. They're not going to be patient until, um, like we do. Like, our philosophy of being patient is not going to kill you. Yeah, it will kill you. And our kids are not going to do like that. So they will, look for their rights, and things will change. But
Mm.
until, yeah, then, yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question. I know you. Mhm. Um,
Mei
yeah.
Zong, I think what you are making very evident to us, among other things, is that there needs to be education of providers, of people who work in restaurants, people who are in the healthcare industry, and I know you've been involved in that for a long time.
Mhm.
But I think the shock of your presentation this morning for me is I always think that there are so many helping agencies in Madison that are available for various populations, and I see that we failed you. Your population has had to take it upon themselves, upon people like you, to make it happen
Yeah.
instead of our
Mhm.
community reaching out to you, especially
Mhm.
when we think how you helped us uh, during the Vietnam War. It's just,
Mhm.
I'm almost speechless, which for me is unusual.
Mhm. Mhm.
I can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
I know you are available at the Hmong Institute on a regular basis, and that phone numbers for that and information about the Hmong Institute is
Mhm.
online. So
Yes.
if
Mhm.
you want to continue
Mhm.
conversations with you, or if you
Mhm.
want to help in any way, that is a good place to go to learn. Am I correct?
Yes, we are there. Just, drop in and, come say hi, or like I said, come and play bingo with our elders, or, you know, um,
Tell us about the major fundraiser, I think, which is the egg roll. What is that? I keep seeing information.
yeah. So we used to own a restaurant on Johnson and East Wash, and that strip mall where Walgreens is. There used to be a Taste of Asia buffet there. That was us. And so we love to cook and entertain. And so our kids were born, and then we could handle parenting and running a business. So we sold it, but a lot of our customers still want our food, right? So we took the opportunity to continue to feed our customer who loves our egg roll and raise money for the Hmong Institute. So every year in April, August, and November, we do pre-orders of the egg rolls. And then on those scheduled days, then people come pick up the egg roll and say hi to us. So I'd be happy to share that with you as well, Pat. And so you can circulate it to everyone.
Thank you.
And a lot of people love their egg rolls, so they order a whole bunch and they freeze it so they can, use it whenever they want. And so we do that 3 times a year as part of our fundraiser event. Yeah.
Thank you. Good.
Mhm.
I know I
A
brought this up, but
question,
yeah,
yeah, a
anybody
question
else?
on here is particular ritual that happens with soul calling. Yes, so soul calling involves a animal, whether it's a chicken, a sheep, a pig, a cow, depending on the nature of the soul calling. It involves the person doing the ritual chanting. So you need to have a special healer who knows how to do the chanting, and then you have a gong that goes with that, and then eggs and incense. And so you do it when the chicken, you do it 2 rounds. 1 round is raw eggs and live chicken or live animal. And then after that first round, then you kill the animal and you boil the eggs, and then you bring it back, and it's right in front of the front door. And then they do the chanting, calling the soul into the home. So whether, you know, the occasion is a newborn, then you call and you say, oh, welcome this new baby who just come to our house. His or her name is this, announcing this to the ancestor and the house altar, because we have a house altar in the house. So then that way, spiritually, that newborn is being welcome. And so the spiritual ancestor would know who they are and recognize them and not treat them like a guest in the house, right? And would protect them. So depending on the occasion, if it's a new bride, a new addition, yeah, same thing would happen. Introducing, Mary is here as the wife of John. Mary is, yeah, so then you would explain who that is, and then you would include them in there. If it's a graduation, they would do that, but then they would do a slight version at the party, right? Where, they do the tying of the string. So after the soul calling, there's always this tying of the string event where everybody participates. And so if you see a Hmong person walking with a lot of yarns, especially white yarns on their hand, it's because they've been blessed with a recent soul calling, right? And so it's a very special event that mentally is very elevating to the soul and the spirits. And the best part of that is when people come and tie your hand, they give you, $5, $10, $20, whatever, and then at the end, you have a whole collection of, monetary support as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Agro fundraiser. It's the Agro information on the website. Not yet, but we are working on putting it there. So in about a month or so, we will. But right now, what we do is we just send the order form to you, and you fill it out, and you send it a check. But yes, we are working on putting it on the website, so it's not there yet.
Good. Thank you so much. I think that of all the years we've been
Lynn
doing-
has a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead. One more.
I am available. So if you guys are not in a rush, I love having this chat. So
Oh, good.
Thank you, May. And sorry
Okay.
for keeping you over.
Lynn?
I have two questions or comments. One is I used to work for UW Health, and there was a nursing grand rounds. I don't know, it was recorded, and it was done maybe 6 years ago. And it was about treating Amish patients and everything regarding their culture, and it was for providers as well as nurses. But what happened was that was such an excellent presentation that went out to all the departments, and I was in information technology. I'm working with computers, and I took it, and it was excellent. And I don't know if there's something available regarding Hmong for the various hospitals like that.
Not that I am aware of. I know Dr. Coleman, who is part of the medical center, it's working with, like the training for medical students in psychiatry area. It hasn't panned or materialized into any standard kind of training. on that. We have worked collaboratively with the Carbon Cancer Center, and they are part of our team to educate. So, in fact, we also do a health summit every other year. And this coming year, we are going to do on colon cancer, which Carbon has a lot of data on the monk that we have, asked them to extract it out. So we will be partnering with them to do that. But no, there hasn't been anything standardized. I have done a basic training about the Hmong in Wisconsin from Meriter Hospital where they taped it and they will use it to show, at their meeting and make it available online for their staff. I don't know how that's going for them. Their staff person is not in communication with me, so I don't know how that go. But yeah, it's hard. And I think the danger for a lot of people is that they think once they get the training one time, then they're all good. And that's not true because we all changes and life changes and systems changes and there's always more updates that you need to do, right? And so no, we had conversation with chaplains and help them understand, but again is on a very lean schedule. And so I think it would be great if we can have, something like that where we can help them all the time, right? So like Access Clinic is one of the one that's most proactive about it. And so when we do our trainings, they send their staff. And so like 1 year, Dr. Kathy at Access called me, like about 3-4 months after she attended the health summit. And she said, "Oh my God, my mom patient said, oh, you are so good. You must have gotten some kind of training on Hmong people," right? Because she knew how to ask the question. She knew how to, probe them and do all of that on a culturally basis. And so she called me, she said, "Oh my God, my patients are getting it and I'm getting it. So thank you for the training." So, for people who go through our health summit, it's a very transformative training where they come in and as Dr. Felix said, I am so, full, but yet I'm hungry. And that is they've been transformed to understand all the culture needs and they know how to ask the right question and all that, but yet they realize they still have so much to learn.
Yeah. Well, it was great for me. My manager suggested it and I suggested it to my whole team and they all took it, but it was just great. It's available on your own time and it doesn't just apply to nurses. It was nursing grand rounds, but
yeah.
Second question or comment I have is I volunteer at the Meadowood Food Pantry. So do Hmong go to all the food pantries? Do you have your own food pantry?
Well, not so for those who really need it and they go, but then again, the service is not culturally competent, right? Meaning they don't have people who speak the language. And then when they go in and people just give them food and then they take home, but then they don't eat it, right? So then some people don't go back. For some people, they don't have transportation, so then they don't make it to the pantry. So there's a different reasons. And when we did our food box, it's like everybody comes to us instead of the pantry. And we have to work with the pantry and show them what items are culturally relevant, right?
Okay.
So some pantries are learning to put products that our community would use on the shelf, but some don't have the mean for it, so they still are struggling, so then they don't have it either. So kind of like up in the air. And I think the advocacy that we're doing, it's really raising the question to the pantry, and they are aware of it. but again, they are also competing for resources for other clients as well. So,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
it's hard. Mhm.
And I was talking to the director at Meadowood, and she was telling me too that because COVID funding for them as well, so it seems like everybody is being affected by the COVID grants and funding, and they're all stopping right now.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was there a month ago, and it took two of us 10 minutes to stock what we had from Second Harvest, whereas it usually takes us 2 hours.
Mhm.
And the shelves were bare, and
Yeah.
I don't know what we do come the first, and we don't have these COVID grants. But
Exactly. Yeah. And
Mhm.
that's where, I feel really sad for our communities where I feel like we're setting them up for failure because they trusted us and they opened their heart to us. And then now we're like, sorry, we have no more food for you, right? And let
Yeah.
them fall flat on their face. And so, it's like it's hard to gain trust and then lose trust so easily when you, open a can of worm and you can't put it back. Right?
Yeah.
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 And so it's hard. Yeah. And I think, yeah, our part is the advocacy part where we try very hard to tell pantry, don't give, these food like Thanksgiving, right? Goodman
Mhm.
Center is very supportive of our community, so we always participate in their program. And, she's always calling, which item of these dairy product do you not want, right? And then we would work with her and we say, okay, no beets. They're pretty, but they don't eat beets. Okay. And so we have to go through the line and say, okay, don't give them this dairy product, don't give them this, and don't give them this, because macaroni and cheese, they don't eat it, right? So then
Right.
people could use it.
Yep. And
Why give it to us, right? Mhm.
I've heard of one volunteer that works at a different food pantry, and they get a lot of food from Epic, right? And we all say, "Oh, wonderful! That Epic food is wonderful." I had to go to Epic twice a year to get training,
Mhm.
and it was always great food, right? And this volunteer tells me, "But no one wants it, and it's great food." And I said, I think they don't want it because culturally they don't eat that. And
Mhm.
so it's not that they're being wasteful or anything, they just don't eat that. It may be really good for us.
Mhm.
We may really like it, but that's why food is being thrown away.
Yeah. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I get that about the cultural,
Right. Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
don't know what the answer is. Food pantries maybe need to talk more to each other. I have no idea what that
Mhm.
is, what the
Mhm.
solution is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, I think I understand that people always want to make sure that they don't treat one population more special than the other, right? And I understand that, but then at the same time, you can't do a one size fits all either, right? Because then you're being wasteful because you give us macaroni and cheese, we don't eat it, but you give us rice, oh my God,
yes,
And
yeah.
so you almost have to tailor to people's need in order to be cost effective too, right? Because you
Mhm.
can't spend money on this area buying things that they don't need, right?
Mhm.
I always share the story of in the refugee camp with the Vietnamese when I used to serve on United Nations Commission for Women and Children in New York. And when we go overseas and we are helping, with the refugee camp overseas and so forth, and there's a small pot of money, right? And they want to buy all these things for all the people in the camp. And Vietnamese staff is like, the most important thing is if each family get a bottle of fish sauce and they put that over the rice, that lasts them a longer time than if you buy them all these things and they don't use it, right?
Mhm.
And so, tailoring to the community is important, efficient, and makes people feel like, you know, they're happy because they receive what they have, right? So with the pantry here, yeah, I'm doing all the education I can. And again, the more you do, the more needs there is because there's so many things that people don't know, right? Like
Yeah.
you give them seasoning chicken, you can only cook one time if they like the season, right? But if you give them raw meat, they can portion size it to the need of their large family, right? And they can cook many times. They don't have to cook it just one time, right? And
Right.
so there's a lot of these different things that you can help them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
again, I see language, food, healthcare, all the different what things we take for granted are issues for populations that are different than ours.
Mhm.
This is a continuing education for all of us.
Yeah.
Maison, thank you so much. And thank you for making it so personal. That really makes a difference, I think. So I think
Thank
we'll be in
you.
touch in the future. Thank you. And
Thank
thanks
you.
for doing this from Texas. Really.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I can send you some nice sunshine and, give you a warmer day.
Well,
But
I've got
yeah,
May 31st on the calendar, and I'll remind everybody of it too. So thank you so much.
thank you. You have my
Thank you.
contact. So like I said, yeah, shoot me an email, come and meet the elders and play bingo with them. And yeah, let's stay connected. Thank you all for having me.
Good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mhm.
Okay, Barbara.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. End of the recording. Wow. I'm amazed.
Pat?
Hey, Pat, we're still recording. I lost access to the controls when I did the share and I can't get back to them. So we're still recording until
Okay.
I can find how to stop because I don't know how.
Well, thank you for getting this going. Appreciate it as usual. I think we'll just all leave you to, if we all go off, perhaps that will automatically stop it. Yes?
Yes, it should. So let's just cut off.
All right.
Thank you.
Goodbye to everybody and thank you.